Let's try that again. What's good, neighborhood? And welcome to episode 18 of Warframe Wednesday. Holy crap. 18. I'd say we're roughly a little over a third of the way through the roster of Warframe at this point. And, you know, out of all the different tutorial series I've done on YouTube, this is the one that's this is the one that I've been able to keep going the longest. Probably because I haven't had to worry so much about editing, as I can just get right down into presenting the information. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe I don't know. I guess I need to you know get myself into a position where I can afford an editor and actually have someone else do the editing for my videos so I can focus a little bit more on just putting out the content. That is neither here nor there, however. Because here we are, and it's time to bring you one of the more, if you'll pardon the pun, rock solid additions to the Warframe roster. Today, it's time for Atlas. So, yeah, you can make all the rock puns, all the stoned puns that you can possibly muster. But the fact remains that Atlas is actually a really good tanky Warframe. It's a good offensive Warframe, just going by its basic kit. And yeah, as I'm sure you've noticed, my Atlas looks a little bit different compared to the default one that you'll unlock. Speaking of which, let's get down to acquisition real fast. If you want to unlock Atlas, you'll find him once you open up. You'll find him once you open up the story quest, the Jordas Protocol. Once you do that, and as you play through the missions, you will run across another AI, another Cephalon called Jordas, and basically you will eventually end up whiting. Ugh, I can talk honestly. You will eventually end up fighting an infested, like an entire ship that was taken over by the infestation. That being the Jordas Golem. Beat that golem, you can farm the parts, and then eventually unlock Atlas. But now that we're done with that, I am absolutely sure I know what you're all here for. It's the reason why I'm even doing this to begin with. So we're going to jump to the relay, and we're going to get right down to covering Atlas's abilities. Hey, Link, good to see you. Ooh, excuse me. Man, this is my. Unfortunately, my vacation's over, so I won't be able to do any more extended streams for a while. But let's go ahead and jump right to where we need to be. So, as I said earlier, Atlas is a pretty solid, as you could probably imagine, he's a pretty solid Warframe as far as actually putting together easy tank builds. Now, Atlas's passive abilities, well, Atlas's main passive ability, Immovable, basically makes it so that if he's if he's on the ground, if his feet are in contact with the ground, then he's immune to knockback or knockdown. Yeah, having that vacation was very it was beneficial to say the least. But yeah, Atlas's two major mechanics are, of course, being invulnerable to knockdown effects while he's on the ground, and also being able to fire guns that you can only use on the Archwing without suffering from any of the kickback. His second mechanic ties more into his ties more into his abilities because he has a special unique mechanic where any of his attacks or any of his special abilities generate rubble, which is basically, literally bits and pieces of rubble. When he petrifies enemies and breaks them, he can pick up the rubble to regenerate his health and boost his armor. Hmm, that was actually a much better summary than I thought I'd be able to pull for that one. But anywho, let's do the usual. Bring up our punching bags, and we'll get started. Now, I know you wouldn't expect Atlas to be as agile as I'm making him look right here. This is Warframe, but this is Warframe. This is Space Ninjas, so even the big guy's going to be able to move pretty gracefully through the air. But the main focus for him is keeping his feet planted, so that way you can just power through any assault that comes your way. Speaking of, the ability that you get right out of the box, Landslide. It's basic stuff. You rush, you shoulder check, you keep moving. Sorry, you rush, you punch, you keep moving. And the more times you can cast it in succession, as long as you have the energy, you'll be able to build up that damage multiplier. Yes, sir. That's the big Rocky boy. But while Atlas's first ability is pretty straightforward, and as you can see, I've already basically been able to boost his armor just from picking up small bits of rubble after ramming into people. His second ability is where things start getting a little bit more, I guess you could say it adds a little bit more variety to what your gameplay is going to be. And that's tectonics. So, what we're basically doing with this is setting up a barrier, and then, when you cast it again, you can have it roll forward and basically carry any enemies that are caught in the path along until it hits an obstacle and explodes. But tectonics is also a really good. It's a really good. It's a really good ability to use for setting up choke points. Basically, if you're in a corridor, you want to set one of these up, and basically you can take out anything that's behind you while the wall protects you. And then, when you want to finish off the skirmish, just actually, you can even go the fancy route. Wait, no, sorry. The fancy route being, you know, doing a second cast and actually sending it sending it rolling towards any targets that might still be alive. Ability number 3, once you get him to rank 7 for the first time, Petrify. Now, notice what I mentioned, petrifying enemies. Yeah, this is literally what I'm talking about. We're on some straight up Medusa stuff right here. And as you can see, it has a set duration, but any enemies that you petrify, if you manage to do fatal damage to them, then you'll break them and you can pick up any. You'll break them and you'll be able to pick up the rebel. Uh, I'm actually on chapter 17, so I haven't finished the game yet, but I'm digging it. And yeah, his actually no. It probably used to and I didn't recognize that it was draining energy, but I think it's if you only have his augment up, which allows you to actually lay down multiple walls. I think that's where it drains energy because you got to keep multiple walls up. But I think what may also drain energy is, of course, his ability that you get his ability that you get at rank 10. Now with the rumblers, of course, you've got extra backup. You can make them that much stronger by casting petrify. And that poor guy just got tossed clean off the edge. But when you cast the rumblers again, it causes them to explode, and the little rubble fragments that are left behind, you pick it up, you get additional armor. Yeah, that's true. The certain syndicates do have the augment mods that you want to keep an eye out for. I don't think I have any of them yet. Oh, don't even worry about it, Andre. You're perfectly fine. But yeah, that right there is Atlas's abilities in a nutshell. Straightforward as far as his abilities themselves go, but they can play off of each other and off of other Warframe abilities in some pretty interesting ways. So, as per the usual, we're going to go ahead. Ooh, excuse me. We're going to go ahead and jump into a live fire mission so that way I can show off a little bit more of what Atlas can do when he's on the clock. Let's see. There's a couple things I was crafting here. I want to make sure they're. Oh, it looks like they're done. I'll take that. And I've got enough space in my inventory for those. Perfect. Absolutely agreed. Yeah, I think I'll stick with that shotgun. Oh, snap! I did. That's right. I did have one of his mods on already. One of his augments, or gaze. So that right there basically makes it so that anytime you petrify an enemy, it scans them into it scans them into your codex, so you can basically increase increase the enemy intel you have, but also ups their chances for dropping loot when you kill them. So it's a choice augment mod to have. Since we're here, let's actually go over his other three augment mods. Since this is, I think, one of the few Warframes where I have all four of his augments. So we got Path of Statues. You do his landslide rush, and it leaves a trail that any enemies that pass through it will get petrified for up to 6 seconds, and that 6 seconds can mean the difference between life and death in a game that's generally as fast paced as Warframe. Titanic Rumbler, instead of making two golems when you cast it, this makes it so that you only do this makes it so that you only cast one, but he's got up to quadruple the health and damage of a normal one. And reactivating it, instead of causing it to explode and drop a piece of rubble, it'll actually make it do a special attack. And this is the mod we were talking about earlier, Tectonic Fracture. This one allows you to create up to 3 walls instead of just the single. But you can no longer turn them into boulders. So if you want a really good defensive setup, then you're gonna want to mod for a Tectonic Fracture. And in case you guys are wondering, yes, Atlas is another one of those Warframes where I wound up grinding for the relics to get the Prime variant. But I mean, if you still want to go through and farm the necessary items to get the vanilla Atlas, then by all means go for it. The Jordas Golem is actually it's one of the few Archwing missions where I've had a lot of fun, because it's focused. It's a boss fight. It's got some lore behind it. It's just really cool. And yeah, Tectonic Fracture is a great mod when you want to set up for like any sort of defense mission, whether it's actual defense or mobile defense, where you have to like I think there's one where if you put in the coolant instead of the fuel cell, then you have to protect the system as it reboots. So yeah, anything where you've got a stationary defense target, yeah, excavate. It's good for excavation missions too. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop into a mission real quick with this base Atlas build that I've got set up for Orgaze, so I can just scan more enemies as I petrify them. And this should give a this should give a pretty good look at what Atlas can do, even in the hands of you know a Warframe rookie like myself. Yeah, actually, that's honestly I think that's one of my favorite parts of Warframe, just as a game. Like, the more Warframes that are added to the roster, the more different kinds of synergies between abilities you can get, and it's working with Warframes and their abilities is kind of like working with it's kind of like playing Final Fantasy VII and working with the different materia combinations. Oh, and also just as a quick aside, I know most people are going to go for most people are probably going to chase the meta as far as what weapons you want to pick up for certain missions or certain warframes. But with Atlas, I always go gauntlets. I always go gloves. It's just it's just too awesome to actually run into a stage and just while everyone else is flipping around doing their deal with swords and guns and everything else, and then I just roll up with Atlas and punch everything to death. Which also explains why I like using Tifa in Final Fantasy VII Remake so much. Well, that could have worked out better. Get these golden gloves. Not the greatest of synergies, you're right about that. But I will say this. Like, actually, here's when you. Here's an ability synergy that I think you might want to try. Like, if you're running with an Atlas main and they're modded for Orgaze, then why not have your Nidus use what you call it? Why not have your Nidus use larva, right? Use the larva, have that collect as many enemies as you possibly can in that area, and then have your Atlas petrify them. So not only can they get the scans, but you also got the extra loot drop. It might make for some pretty solid farming synergy. Hang on. There we go. There we go. Everything gets punched. Oh, speaking of Grendel, I actually got really lucky because yesterday when I logged on, I got the when I got the login tribute, it was a 75% off coupon on my next market purchase, and I still had like 90 some odd platinum on me. So I used that coupon, went into the market, and Bob's your uncle. I now have Grendel on my roster. Yeah, actually, if I was going to go into like what my main Warframes are, I haven't had the chance to use Grendel yet. I probably will when I get home and I have some time. But as far as my Warframe mains, I got to go with Neja, Limbo, Saren. Yeah, Neja, Limbo, Saren, and if I were to only stop at four, then my fourth would be Mirage. Especially now with the with the Kuva weapons and with that with that Kuva Scattermind bow. Well, pretty much Mirage with any firearm using her Hall of Mirrors duplicates is just plain wrong. It is disgusting and wrong. Okay. Ooh. Oh, do you think your boys are gonna protect you? Strength to these knuckles? Come on. Okay, I think I might probably need to actually switch to something, a little more long range. There we go. Okay. Looks like we got both of his little vents busted, so after that, he'll go critical, and then it's punch time. Okay, what chapter did you say you were on again? Because, dude, when you get to the Sector 7 plate drop, oh, that that hurts. Oh, I don't need to finish punching everybody. Boop, I'll take that. Open that up. Open that up. I need more energy. And boom. I'll take that. I'll drop you, and that's the end of that. It's like, I don't need to keep punching everyone. Wanting to, on the other hand. Yeah. Technically, I mean, since we already know what happens to Sector 7 with, the original Final Fantasy 7, it's not that much of a spoiler, but how that section of the game is handled now is just, oh man. Oh, woof. Like it's one that's gonna hurt for a while. But anyway, now that we've got that basic mission out of the way, I'll, I guess, since I've got a good amount of time in on this game, I think I may at least be able to, kind of give some suggestions as far as what sorts of builds you'd want to go for based on their abilities and, of course, based on what mods you have available to you. So, with Atlas, I think you honestly want to get to a point where, and that's even if you have to trade for the platinum to do it, I think you're really going to want to set up a fourth a fourth loadout. Oh wait, I've got enough I've got enough platinum to actually do it. Excuse me. But yeah, I think you're basically going to want to set up a fourth configuration so that way you can have one loadout, basically one loadout for each ability and the augment mod that it comes with. Okay, so this one is, oh yeah, this one's more of a strength. This one's more of a strength build here because, I want my stuff to do triple damage, and it's like I want my stuff to do triple the damage, but I also want my rumblers to do triple damage as well. Now, no matter what Warframe you have, if you can find the adaptation mod, then if you can find the adaptation mod, then you are going to be in fantastic shape. Because no matter what, you'll still take damage, but the more of a certain damage type you take, you'll actually start building a resistance and eventually an immunity to it. But yeah, you definitely want to build. It's like if you're going to be using any of his direct offense, then ability strength is definitely what you're going to want to mod towards, at least just as a base. For his second configuration, this one I tended to go more towards the duration side, so that way I can actually keep my dudes up for a little bit longer. And you know what? Instead of Path of Statues, what I should do is actually put the Titanic Rumbler on that one. And now that I think more about it, no, stick with the three configurations, because Orgaze can come in handy no matter what build you're using. But I think well, I definitely want to do something about increasing my range. So let's put overextended there. Now the boys aren't doing quite. It's like the boys aren't doing quite as much damage, but the Rumbler is still going to do damage with this build. And my and my Petrify. Well, if that's the case, I should probably just take Orgaze off, since that right there is going to decrease my farming chances. But greater duration, greater range. Ah, what the heck. Vigor is always a useful mod. That is true. That is very true. But just as with any other Warframe, as you can see with Atlas, although his kit is pretty straightforward, there's still a lot to play with. There's still a lot to, there's still a lot to build around. Now you see, I think that's what I'm going to need to do as far as the next goal I want to set for myself in this game. I want to go through, deal with, well, as soon as I finish doing what I need to as far as earning what I want for the Warframes that I do have, I need to go through and just get all of the augment mods that I can get my hands on, or just go through, keep raising my reputation with the different factions, so I can get all of the augment mods, actually have them, maybe even get copies of them so I can trade them for platinum. I think that's another reason why I'm having so much fun using Atlas, though, especially with the gloves, because, well, I like the bare knuckle brawlers, and Streets of Rage is no different. But anyways, uh, as far as rookie surface level explanations go, I don't think I can go much further with Atlas. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop the stream for now, so I can finish getting ready for work. I appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out with me for this one. I'll have it. I'll have it uploaded to YouTube by next week. But until then, and until the next stream, I will definitely keep you all posted. Now have yourselves a top-notch Wednesday, huh?